Good morning, everyone. This is Gail Dudley with your news in motion. How are you today? We have a special guest today. Y'all remember him, I'm sure, from the last time. But let's just see who's in the room so we can get this party started. So much content this week. So much is going on this week as well. I'm still seeing a lot of the emails in reference to what's happening with the Haitians underneath that bridge in the Texas border. So much going on there. So we're going to continue to have conversation about that. So if y'all want to hit that share button and get people to come on in here with us this morning, because we have a lot to cover this morning. Good morning, Diane Ladybug. Good morning to you. Don't forget your podcast will go live on tomorrow, and I'll make sure you get all the information for that. So again, come on in the room, people. Let us know you're in here as we get this party started today. So much is going on. So much is going on. Again, we're seeing all the comments, and we'll do more reporting. We actually have someone on the ground in Texas, and so we're going to try to get some live feed from them later on today, if that's possible. But everyone else, just come on in the room. I see you, Hester and Tony and Servinia and Yvonne and Danielle. Yes, I'm calling names this morning. I see you coming in here. Good morning to all of you. Um, so yes, in Texas, I've reached out to a couple of churches in that area to get us more information on what's going on with the Haitians. I have a little updated report I'll be sharing with you all this morning. Good morning, Lori. Good morning, Mike Nicholson. What's up to you? Good morning, Pastor Antoinette. You're like, okay, so once a week she's going to throw out names. You never know. You'll never know. But yeah, we have a lot to cover this morning. So just, you might want to get pen and paper because we have more information for you. Good morning, Deborah Johnson. I see you. Yeah, y'all, it's just going to be a day of content, if I can put it that way. Good morning, Judy Neal. Good morning. For those of you who are Patreon members, if you want to get the replay of the financial piece, it is now on Patreon. We posted it late yesterday. We were trying to get that out to you earlier this morning, yesterday morning, but we weren't able to do so. But you should have that now. Good morning, Marion Jackson. Good morning to you. All right, y'all, as you all are coming in, if you don't mind hitting that share button, we have a special guest today. Today is Thursday, September the 23rd, 2021. And we're going to go over some COVID information, boosting your immune, what's true and what's false. We're going to talk about that this morning just for a little while. Whether you're watching live or the replay, and we see so many of you coming in from other countries, and we just want to say thank you. We're glad that you want to hang out with us. Sometimes it's late at night for you, or it's very early morning, or you're at the end of your day. We're just so glad that you chose to hang out with News in Motion. I am your host, Gail Dudley. So as I see you popping in here, I see y'all coming in here. Let's go ahead and start this morning's intro. Yes, believe it or not, guess who reached out to me? Facebook, asking me to show proof that I own the rights to this music. So I was so excited to let them know, see that I own this. So that's so exciting. So now they know that I own, I think they'll leave me alone. So let's start off right here. COVID, Biden administration commits to an additional 500 million doses of the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for lower income countries. So this kind of speaks to a little bit, hopefully we'll get to Venezuela. Y'all know that Damia Kandai was speaking of that, where she met a young woman in the airport who both of her parents died in Venezuela because they could not get the vaccine. and they're raising a total pledge of 1.1 billion. That's with the B doses. Average COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. passed 2,000 per day. Cases and hospitalizations trending downward. So that's good. Yeah, Demia, that's hopeful. All right, y'all, we're going to kind of flip the script today. We're going to bring our guest on earlier today. Y'all remember him? I'm sure y'all remember him. Dr. Nicholas Kman. He's coming in here in a few moments. And I'm so excited. Let me get him in here. Bam, there he is. OSU. He's an MD. He's a FACEP professor. Am I saying that right? In the Department of Emergency Medicine at The Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. Dr. Kman's clinical interest is in disaster response and emergency preparedness. Y'all, he just came back. He was serving over in Louisiana, am I right, with Hurricane Ida? Is that correct? So He was there for 8 days. He was sharing with me. He and I had a great conversation on yesterday, and he's going to come in and to share some information. And when we kick this off, the first thing I want to ask you, first of all, good morning to you. I'm so glad you want to hang out with me. Y'all, I knew he was going to come in with a sweatshirt, so y'all know I'll come with a sweatshirt too. It's like, hey, I can dress that up. I'm the most comfortable in my sweatshirt. But here's a question I have for you. Well, two of them. One, people are asking about ages 5 to 11 now that this Pfizer, we believe the Pfizer has been approved. I'm not for sure if that's correct or not. And then the other thing is how many people has been treated or have you treated individually with COVID that weren't vaccinated versus those who are vaccinated? And should we continue to give up the hospital beds to those who are unvaxxed? I know you don't want to answer that, but I'm going to just let you come on in here. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, let me, I'll try to take those one at a time. So thanks again for having me. I really enjoy, talking about the pandemic and disaster response, and hopefully get some people some information out there on what's happening. The first part of what you asked about the vaccines for those 6 to 11, Pfizer released their data that a third dose vaccine for, our younger children, performed well. That hasn't been reviewed and approved by the FDA yet.
Okay.
So we're not ready to give those vaccines to that group yet. And I have a 9-year-old at home, so I'll be, really paying attention to, what the literature shows. We always have to be a little careful in medicine when the drug companies release the data, because, we want to examine it independently as doctors and healthcare professionals and public health professionals. So I think more to come on that, but it's favorable, and it makes sense that a smaller dose would go for those younger folks. And right now the children's hospitals are very full. I don't know if your audience heard, but they had several of the children's hospitals on the governor's press conference just talking about how full all the children's hospitals are. So I think the hope is that the vaccine gets approved for that group, and maybe it helps stop the cases from spreading around and helps us in general.
Do you know why the cases for children? Because I think I reported yesterday, it's like 26% of last week's cases came from children. Why all of a sudden is that on the rise? Do you have any idea?
Well, I think part of it is that group hasn't been vaccinated. So, we've made a lot of progress in, initially we started with 16 and up for the Pfizer group and 18 and up for the Moderna group. And, we know that we're above 50% in some of those groups. So there just aren't as many people left to get sick in the older groups, whereas 12 and younger haven't been vaccinated at all, unless your kids were a part of one of the trials, which I know some of my partners actually had their kids, enroll in some of the vaccine trials. But I think, that's why that group is unprotected. And, this is a novel virus. So, we're going to see some infections there as well. I think the other thing that's concerning is now that the kids are back in school and the mask requirements vary from school district to school district, we're seeing a lot of other illness in the children's hospitals, like RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, for example, is huge in the children's hospitals right now. So it's not all COVID, but there's a lot of other infections going on with kids back to school and doing sports and all the after school activities.
Yep, it's funny you said that. One of our, what I call our scientists, Kenya, I just put that up on the screen. I'm sure you can see it. She said, yes, RSV. Yeah.
Yeah, and hand, foot, and mouth is a virus as well. And, I think the thing that's tough about that is as the hospitals get full, we can't take care of the other things that come in normally. And, last week we really had a little bit of a crisis in Southern Ohio with having ventilators and hospital beds for everyone, to the point where we had to ship some ventilators down to, near West Virginia and other places to help them out because the hospitals are so full. And, about 1 in 3 or so patients in the ICU are COVID positive, depending on where you're at. But, just life is continuing to happen. So it's not just COVID, it's everything else that's filling the hospitals.
Wow. So one of our viewers is really big on boosting our immunity. Can you speak a little to that? And, I've been reading different articles where people are spending thousands of dollars on supplements. Does that make a difference, or what else can we do to try to get this diminished some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in general, the healthier we are, the healthier our immune systems are. So I think we've seen people with diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, elders, chronic medical conditions can impact your immune system. And when that happens, we can do the best we can to boost the immune system. The problem is this: a lot of those supplements that cost thousands of dollars at GNC and other places haven't been proven in regular medical trials to help. So we have to continue to follow the literature and follow what the FDA is suggesting. And also, I will say that we did a lot of trials early in the pandemic on giving, zinc and vitamin C and other things that maybe showed a little bit of help, but weren't the kind of impact that we were hoping for. So, the problem for our immune systems is the coronavirus is still a novel virus. Unless you've either had it or been vaccinated, your immune system's never seen it. And that, is why it's so unpredictable. So, keeping a healthy lifestyle, eating healthy, restraining, alcohol and tobacco use, that's going to probably help your immune system more than some unproven supplements might do. So it's tough to comment on that because, again, there's not a ton of medical literature on it.
So now you just said something, Doc. I was with you until you just said something. Did you say restrain from alcohol? Are you talking about wine or the hard stuff? Which one?
Well, and, it's not even, I'm guilty of enjoying myself, occasionally as well. It's more the chronic, daily use. And we know smoking impacts, the body, and that's been well established. I think there's literature to show that a glass of red wine, here or there actually helps your HDL cholesterol and your body in some ways. But I think chronic heavy alcohol use does impact the immune system. And there's been, some people who have advocated if you're going to get your booster shot, because when you get that booster, your immune system is going to build antibodies to that spike protein. You should probably restrain from alcohol use, at least a couple days before that and a couple days after, to give your body a good chance of building a nice, immune reaction to the vaccine.
I know you probably cannot see the chats. Maybe you can, but they're really on me because I normally have my mimosa. So they're like, yeah, Gail, no alcohol.
Yeah, I'm going to say this is alcohol-free coffee this morning.
So let's talk about the booster. So there was something that came out late last night. I think it was around midnight or so that I was able to see it. So 65 and over, and those who have an immune deficiency, they can start getting the booster. Is that correct? But what about the rest of us? If you
Yeah,
know anything, if you can't speak to that, that's fine.
no. I'll tell you what I know, and so 65 and older, and higher risk people who are at higher risk for getting sick from COVID, and that would include, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, lung disease, and then frontline high-risk workers, so healthcare workers, EMS, grocery store workers. I think they mentioned teachers. Those were the groups that they recommended. The FDA recommended the booster for.
Okay.
And it's for people who got Pfizer more than 6 months ago. So this is only Pfizer right now that we're talking about. And then there's a group from the CDC that met yesterday, and they're going to meet today, called the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. This is the group that kind of finally says who's recommended to get the vaccine. So as far as I understand, and my parents are both in their late 70s, although they got Moderna, I'm paying attention, and obviously I got Pfizer more than 6 months ago. So I'm in the group that when it's my turn to go, I'll get the booster. But one thing that I would just, emphasize, for everyone is, if I had 1,000 vaccines, I would give them all as first doses, because it's way more important that we get more people vaccinated than we give more people a third shot.
Okay.
I think this is such a novel virus. Our immune systems haven't seen it. And so it's just very important. And I guess the group that I would exclude from that is the group who is immunocompromised from, cancer or having a transplant. And that group, you'll recall, was recommended to go about a month ago. So,
right.
At the James Cancer Hospital and other places, we've been giving third shots to that group for about a month. So, I'm definitely not saying don't get the booster, and I'm going to get mine for sure when it's finally recommended and I can get it. But I don't think the urgency is there like it would be for someone to get their first dose, So that's something that's very important to emphasize is, and we have enough vaccine for everyone to get whatever they want, So if you come into our medical center, in the ER, we can offer people, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, or Pfizer. And, I always, whenever I see a patient at OSU East or at OSU, I always, ask them if they've been vaccinated and try to have a conversation with them and see if they're willing to get the vaccine.
So with Pfizer, okay, if I'm understanding this correctly, Pfizer has been, I guess, approved for the booster. So if someone has Moderna, let's say they're 65 or over, or they have a situation that they need the booster, or they'd be recommended the booster. If they had Moderna, can they take the Pfizer booster or not?
That's not recommended currently. That it's been studied, and it's thought that it would probably be fine to get either one. I think one of the things about the Moderna vaccine is that it actually has a little bit more of the dosage in it than Pfizer, and so I think there's been some literature, out of different places, Israel included, that look like Moderna may last you a little bit longer. So I don't think, if you got 2 doses of Moderna, you should be well protected at this point, and probably shouldn't be in an urgency to get the booster. And from everything I'm hearing and reading, Moderna is kind of going through all the same steps that Pfizer is. Remember, when these vaccines first got approved, Pfizer got approved first, and then it was a week or 10 days later, Moderna got approved. So they're going to wind up going through all the same, I think, steps. So if you got Moderna, you probably will be eligible for a third dose, in the next 2 weeks to a month. So just, be patient, and when it's recommended for you, I would recommend getting it.
Okay. Kenny Stanley's asking, I am fully vaccinated and I had COVID. Should I get a booster when it becomes available?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And, what I would say is it probably matters when you had COVID. So, what we're seeing is this. If you got COVID in 2020 and you got the Alpha variant, and the vaccines were produced and geared towards the Alpha variant, then, you probably should get a booster because it's going to help you with the Delta variant. If you got vaccinated 2, full doses or a J&J, and then recently got COVID, which we know everything right now is the Delta variant, then the urgency is probably not as severe, because you will have recent antibodies towards the Delta variant. But I'm certainly advising anyone who got infected last year, which we know would have been the Alpha variant, to get vaccinated, because what we're seeing in some of the studies is the lasting immunity from being infected, earlier in 2020, people are still getting the Delta variant. So, again, I think, and to get vaccinated after COVID, you have to kind of be symptom free. So, I've seen some folks in the ER who have COVID and they're asking me for the vaccine. We have to wait a little bit until you're symptom free and are out of a certain window before we give you the vaccine. But for Kenneth, I would recommend it if you had COVID, back over a year ago.
Okay. So what about well, let me go to this person. I'm sorry. Hi, Pastor Alex. What about he says, how about someone who goes from J&J to Pfizer? Is that possible? I know we mentioned Moderna, but is J&J, or should we all just stick with our original vaccine?
Yeah, this has been studied in Europe as well. And I don't think it's been recommended yet. But I think there will be more information out there. So I may try to dig into this one and get you an answer, through email, Gail, because there may be some new literature out there that I'm not aware of. But I know in England and other countries, they studied a boost with, they have AstraZeneca there, and they were boosting people with a different shot, and it seemed to be fine. So I would say that this is probably a yes, but right now it's still not recommended. The one thing I will say is J&J has studied and released their findings with a booster. So it's looking like if you got J&J, the correct regimen is going to be a J&J shot, and then like 6 months later a second shot. And then the correct regimen for Moderna and Pfizer is going to be the shot, and then 3 weeks later another shot, and then about 6 months later you would get your third. So if you got J&J, I would probably just wait, and in the coming weeks I think you're going to hear about a booster for you.
Great, thank you. Now, what about, since this is the time that people are getting their flu shot, if they're getting ready to get either the booster or their first vaccine, should there be some distance between that vaccine and the flu vaccine or flu shot?
Yeah, so we were saying that you had to wait 14 days from any other vaccine, but that recommendation has gone away. So
Okay.
Moderna is actually studying a shot that would be a COVID booster and a flu shot in the same vaccine. So
that's a lot of medicine.
Yeah. Well, just think about, with babies, we give them,
That's
3
true.
or 4 vaccines at the same time. And some of those, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, that's all in the same vaccine. So I think the answer for that is, if it's most convenient for you to get both, I think it's probably fine. Again, the most important thing here is that people are getting the flu vaccine. My son's getting his today at a child visit. So I haven't gotten mine yet, just because the medical center is, so taxed with giving COVID vaccines. And so I may have to just, head on up to CVS and grab a flu shot. But you can get both. And if it's convenient for you, you can do them both at the same visit.
Okay. All right. Kenya is asking, how do you encourage those who are not vaccinated to get vaccinated? I have a family member who has MS that doesn't want to get vaccinated.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a lot of um, what healthcare professionals have been struggling with over the past 4 to 5 months. So initially, the vaccines came out, and through the end of March, it was like oxygen. I mean, people would drive state to state to get a vaccine, but now we are to the point where we're trying to get people vaccinated, and there's a couple things that I think are important to know um, about the vaccines. First of all, over 4 billion vaccines for COVID have been given worldwide, and millions of vaccines have been given in the United States. The reason the FDA and the CDC take some time to go through this is they've never had this much information on a vaccine. So, I hear from people a lot of the time, well, the vaccine's so new and we don't know anything about it. And I would argue that we know more about these vaccines than we know about many other medicines that come onto market that haven't been given to 4 billion people. The mountain of data that we have is so huge. It takes a while to go through it. Have your family member talk to people who have gotten the vaccine. I think most people would say, my arm got a little bit sore and I was fine. I worked the Schottenstein Center when we were giving thousands of vaccines a day, and the incidence of issues with the vaccine is almost zero. I mean, it's so safe. And finally, what I would say is we know a lot about the vaccines. We know we're giving you a controlled kind of case of COVID, and we know how it's going to behave. And we know, a day after your second shot, you're going to be better. And we know you're immune. And we know that people who are vaccinated very rarely get hospitalized and almost never die from COVID. But what we don't know about COVID is still a lot. I heard a article on NPR, or a segment on NPR yesterday about people who have lost their sense of taste and smell, or have had it distorted so much that they can't even enjoy what they eat from COVID. Long COVID is a real thing, and we know that there's literature that shows that within a month of being hospitalized with COVID, about a half of these people come back to the hospital with some other symptom, like fast heart rate or palpitations or shortness of breath or extreme fatigue. The vaccines don't do that. So, I hear a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to roll the dice with COVID, and because I don't know about the vaccines. Well, you really are rolling the dice. You're rolling the dice that you could die, you could go on a ventilator, you could have fatigue, you could have myocarditis. So, I think that knowing that we're giving somebody kind of a controlled piece of COVID, and it's not even, the part that makes you sick, like, vaccines do. We don't give people the real flu. It just lets your immune system recognize that it's that. So it's hard. I think we all have family members that are hesitant to take the vaccine. So I sympathize with you, because I have these conversations all the time. And, I think the hope is that people are open to, healthcare providers that dig into the literature and kind of know the facts on these things, and go to someone you trust. If you trust your doctor, then ask your doctor. But I would really recommend a healthcare professional. I think one of the things that Gail, you and I talked about yesterday is misinformation and how easy it is to perpetuate. I read something like, false information spreads on the internet 10 times faster than regular facts do. And, when I have these conversations with people, I ask them where they got their information, and they'll think it's a reputable source. And then you'll go to the website, and then it just quotes another website that quotes another website that quotes something someone said. And there's actually no facts behind it. Whereas, with healthcare professionals and public health folks, we're actually digging into the literature. So we're not even really just trusting who's reading the New England Journal. We're looking at, the facts of the New England Journal. And I even rely as an emergency physician. I'm not an infectious disease expert, so I rely on those folks, and we have phone calls, twice a week. We have one today at 4:00, and that's when we go over what's the newest data.
Right.
How many visitors can we have? When do we wear masks? All the things that we're doing. So
Wow.
good luck with your family member, though. It is a challenge right now.
I have one last question for you, Doc. This is from Cherie. She's in Baltimore, Maryland area. She says, what about COVID-19 brain fog post having it? Is it common?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard a lot of people come in with that complaint, and I don't know if I know a percentage of how common it is. Like 30% of people get brain fog, but it's definitely a thing. And it's one of the reasons that if somebody comes in and they say, I just feel like I'm not thinking clearly and I'm fatigued, like I will definitely test that person for COVID, because I think one of the hardest things about this is, again, it behaves differently in each person. So people get different symptoms. So, brain fog is a real thing. And, one of the interesting things about long COVID, somebody put in the comments something about, having long COVID. I did read something where the vaccine is thought to help with long COVID. So they studied early on in the pandemic, they studied people who had long COVID and then got vaccinated. And something like 80% of them, their long COVID symptoms got better. So, and there's a chance you may be in the group that don't, but if your reason for not getting the vaccine is because you've had long COVID and you think you're going to get more of that, I think the literature shows otherwise. It shows that that your symptoms may actually improve.
Yeah. As Demia says here, for lack of knowledge, our people perish. I agree with that. Well, as always, I am so grateful that you agreed to come on. I enjoyed our conversation yesterday. We're just going to have to make you our resident news and motion doctor. Just when we need something, we're going to call up Dr. Kman.
Well, I'm happy to do that. Like I said, I really enjoy, having these conversations. And even if it's somebody who's resistant to the vaccine, I like to hear them out and, try to provide the knowledge. And if we disagree at the end, then at least we've had a, productive conversation.
I agree with that. I hope you had an easier day the second half of the day yesterday.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just busy after getting back from the hurricane. All the work is still there to be done. So
Right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Until next time. Now go take your son to that well visit. I appreciate you.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one. All right, y'all. I'm so glad that he was here to share that information. And so I see the time. So this is what I'm going to do. I have two things I want to share with you. So please don't go yet, because I really want you to take action, our call to action video. As y'all know, tomorrow we will be doing our podcast. So we won't be on live here, but the podcast drops at 12 midnight. Be sure that you either subscribe to the podcast, download, listen to it, and share it, please. We would greatly appreciate that. More information is coming from Dr. Kim Carter for those in Patreon. I'll get that up today as well. We want to just give you a quick update. Reports suggest that thousands of Haitian migrants are being released from detention at the U.S.-Mexico border, while others are deported via flights to Haiti. Nearly 14,000 migrants massed near Del Rio, Texas in recent weeks. We do now have some people who will be feeding us information who are actually there on the ground. As soon as we get that, we will post it, even if it's during the week, and we'll make sure we get that out to all of you. Again, we want to thank Dr. Kman for coming on and sharing with us today. My conversation with him yesterday was amazing. That if I was probably like 20 years old, I might want to become a physician, but I'm too old now, so that's not going to happen. And I was like, wow, this could be my other thing other than politics, because he's just a wealth of knowledge. And he talked about coming back from Hurricane Ida. He was there for 8 days and everything that he witnessed there. So y'all, we never really know. So we need to be grateful and thankful for what we see. This is what we're going to do. Please don't go until you see this. I'm also asking you to share today's broadcast, because there was a wealth of knowledge that can go around the entire globe. So it doesn't matter where you are tuning in from. I love my millennial team. I absolutely love them. And I could really cry, but I'm going to keep holding it back. Early this morning, they said, "Hey, Mama G, we got to do this." After the hashtag Gabby Petito, they said all these missing people are coming up. And I said, "How are we going to do this, y'all, in 35 minutes?" And they responded, "We got you." So they put together a quick video. It's not really quick, a video. And I want us to all pay attention to the video they put together. And I watched it and I was in tears. And I think it's time for all of us to start saying, okay, we need to have as much effort going after and looking for people as we did for Gabby. I'm glad that there's closure for Gabby's family. I'm sad and I grieve and I send my condolences to the family, because it's now been, her body was found and it's of course now been labeled as a homicide. And I do hope they find her, what's his name? I can't even think of his name, but the ex-fiance, whatever happened there, I hope they get to the bottom of it. But because of her, other faces and other names have come to light. We are not going to show our outro video today. We're just going to end with this. For the weekend, y'all have a blessed weekend. Remember to make some moves, stay well. Replay this to hear the information from Dr. Kman. And with that, I'm praying for all of these families and all of these individuals that we're getting ready to show you now in this video.